There got to be a better way than this. Very nice. Okay, so we're in for a special little treat this time. Whenever I was a little kid, my grandparents and my uncle Memford as well used to have these big get-togethers. Most people would call them family reunions, but a lot of people that weren't exactly family would show up. But you know, basically just big parties. Most of the time it was like on 4th of July and stuff. And what I remember most about these get-togethers was the men would all go out to the barn or the garage or whatever was there, depending on whose house we had it at. And they would gather around a big old bucket. This bucket had in it pickled corn. Now, as a child, I would always run over there and I would try to get pickled corn. Well, all I got was shooed away, and they told me, oh, you wouldn't like this. This is for the men. You wouldn't like this. And now that I've had pickled corn several times, I would have to agree with them. As a child, I probably would have thrown up. But the point is what I saw pickled corn as was sort of like a rite of passage. You had to be a man before you could actually eat it. So now, as I'm full grown and I fancy myself one of the manliest of all men, I make my own pickled corn, damn it. So I figured I'd show you how it's done. Now, hindsight, I should have shown you from the beginning, but I've already got some that I've been brewing for a long time, and I'm just going to show you in reverse order. I'll break it down for you. Now, whenever my uncle would do it, he would actually have a very large 5 or 8 gallon crock, big porcelain crock, you know what I'm talking about. And I've got one of those too, but I'm really the only person that eats this junk, so there's no need to make a whole bunch of it. So what I have here is just a great big jar, and you see I've got some ears that I've cut in half and placed down in there. The general recipe for pickling is you take 1 cup of canning salt per 1 gallon of water. Now, the last time I did that, what I noticed was there was a little bit too much salt and not enough fermentation going on. Because see, the salt prevents the fermentation. So if you add too much of it, then, well, it kind of ruins it, and all you get is really salty corn. Now, it'll still preserve it. It preserves the corn like crazy. And that's why this was done. Keep in mind that if you're doing this, it wasn't actually done because it tasted good. This is how people kept their crops throughout the winter and until the next summer, whenever their new crops came in. So this is an actual preservation technique, not so much a, oh, doesn't it taste glorious technique. So anyways, on to it. What you have here on the top is the mother. What it is a bunch of mold that is collected on the top of the container. Yeah, it's pretty nasty. So what happens is we take our corn, we pile it into the container, and then we take something that will hold the corn down underneath the water line. Right? Usually in a big crock, that's like a plate or something. Well, in this one, I wasn't able to get a plate down in there, obviously, right? So what I did was I took a piece of plastic and I cut it about the diameter of the inside of the jar, and then I folded it, shoved it down in there, and then put a rock over top of the plastic. Whatever method you use is fine. It looks like in this method, some of the orange of the plastic rose to the top. I don't know, it's probably going to be toxic. I'm still going to eat it though. But what you want to do is once you've got it in the salt brine, I did 3/4 of a cup of salt per 1 gallon of water. Poured it in there. Put my plastic over top of the corn, put a rock on top of the plastic to hold the corn down underneath the line, because you don't want your corn to rise up into this nasty mold stuff. All right? Then you put a lid on it, and you just loosely leave it on there, because if you tighten it, it's not likely to ferment the way that it needs to. It needs to be able to breathe. Now the old school method is to use a towel or something. Put a towel over it, then a string, and tie it so that it breathes through the towel. But as you can see, I didn't do that. It's no big deal. Point is, it's below the water line. We're good to go. Once you've got it there, you leave it in there for 21 days. After 21 days, it should be fermented and good to eat. Now, I don't know personally how long corn will keep like this, but I know it's a long time. Myself, I wouldn't hesitate to eat it if it had been in here for 6 months. And according to the way it worked, you know, the parties were mostly 4th of July parties, and therefore it was probably corn that was harvested the year prior, and then it was pickled, and it was an entire year old. I don't know. I ate mine up before it gets a year old. So that's the best you're going to get out of me. So let's get to breaking this down and see what it's like on the inside. First, we got to get rid of that nasty, moldy mother. Oh God, it's disgusting. You go ahead, get yourself a piece of cheesecloth. Now the cheesecloth will catch all the remnants that get left behind that I wasn't able to scoop out with a spoon. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour this through the cheesecloth into a bowl. Now why? Why not just drain it? Because in the end, after I get this done, I'm going to rinse out the bowl, and I'm going to pour the salt water solution back into the jar. All right. Now before we go doing that, I got to get this rock and this piece of plastic out of there. Okay. Now at this point, you see how nasty all that stuff was. Now I'm going to rinse off my corn and rinse out my jar. Now if you wanted, you could go ahead and take your brine and just put it right back into the original jar. I'm going to be putting this in the refrigerator a little at a time. So I'm going to take my corn, shove it into quart-sized jars. Be a little bit easier. Ooh, that was perfect. Now we've got 2 quarts ready to go in the fridge, and as I feel like eating pickled corn, I can break them out and eat it. No problem. Pungent, unique, and to me, I like it because it means I'm a man. Damn, that's really good. I mean, it's, you know, you may hate it. Last time I made it, it was nothing.
Almost tastes fruity.
Yeah, it's like, that's the fermentation. Oh, I'm so happy about that because last time I put too much salt. 3/4 of a cup.
That's interesting. It's not bad.
It's so disgusting, you just gotta take another bite and make sure it was that bad.
Yeah.
But it's different, pungent.
It's like, you can't quite figure out what the taste is. What is that? Melon? Melon balls in this?
I'm glad it's still recording. Turned out really good. That right there is the good shit. My dad always made it too salty. Uncle Mint, from what I understand,
I don't think so, dog.
he's the one that made it really good.
I mean, it still holds the sweetness of the corn. I guess that's what the... It's different.
Oh, it's definitely different. No doubt about that. But, like I was saying, just because of, you know, the power of deduction, whenever he did it, he had a whole big huge bucket full of it. And it had to have been left over from the previous year's harvest. So it preserved it for an entire year. You just take raw corn, put it in there and let it happen.
It doesn't taste like it was raw.
Yeah. Tastes like it was cooked.
Yeah. It's not bad. Guess I'm a man too.
Woo! Pickled corn! Pickled corn! I almost want to open up the jar and give me another one. You know? That one really worked out good. Last time, not so good.
Yeah, it's got that weird fruity aroma aftertaste. That's
Yeah.
kind of intriguing. That's why you bite it again. You're like, what is that?
Yeah.
That's pretty good. I keep eating it, so it must be alright.
Yeah.
It's different.
But it is really, it'll throw you for a loop because you don't know what to expect. You don't expect corn to taste like that.
I mean, it's got the texture of corn,
Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't taste.
Oh, so listen, guys. In case I wasn't clear, raw corn buried in a salt brine solution. What you do is you take 3/4 of a cup of salt, canning salt that is, 3/4 of a cup of salt per 1 gallon of water. You fill it up, you submerge the corn, you figure out some way to keep it underneath the water. You don't want to use wood to press it down because, well, the wood would get really nasty, I would imagine, I think. But anyways, you put a plate over top of it and then put a rock on top of that plate to hold it down. Let it sit for 21 days, it'll ferment, and it'll keep for a long time, and it's unique, it's good, it's, I don't know, some would call it delicious. I don't know.
Might be delicious.
It might be, to some people.
Are you talking to the camera or are you talking off camera?
I was talking to the camera. Alright. But we're good with that. Woohoo!